All right, welcome to Hoops Tonight here at The Volume. Happy Monday, everybody. Hope all of you guys had an incredible weekend. We're going to be starting today off with a couple of series previews. In this video, I'm just hitting Mavs Thunder. Later today, we'll have a shorter series preview on Celtics Cavs coming out. And then later tonight, we're going after the final buzzer of Game 2 of Nuggets Timberwolves, break that game down, as well as the Knicks Pacers series having their Game 1 tonight. So 2 series previews live show tonight. Also, quick note, I released a game breakdown with 45 clips of film on the Nuggets Wolves Game 1, but we ran into an issue with YouTube where it got pulled. So we just ran the verbal part at the start of the show. That may or may not end up happening to this video as well. I have 10 clips that we're going to hit at the end, but just know we're still trying to kind of work through that behind the scenes. So I'm going to do the best that I can, but that's why I'm going to kind of go over everything verbal at the top of the show. So at least we have that if something goes wrong. But again, I apologize for that issue we had with that video. I promise we're working on it behind the scenes. You guys know the drill. Before we get started, subscribe to our brand new YouTube channel so you don't miss any more of our videos. Follow me on Twitter at _JasonLT so you guys don't miss show announcements. Don't forget about our podcast feed, wherever you get your podcasts under Hoops Tonight. And then last but not least, keep dropping mailbag questions in those YouTube comments so we can keep hitting them throughout the rest of the postseason. All right, let's talk some basketball. So Mavs Thunder, this is, of all the series that I've talked about in the first round of the postseason, or I should say the first and second round of the postseason, this one is the hardest one for me to get a feel for. I kind of had a more concrete feeling going in until I got the news that Maxi Kleber is going to be out for at least the next 3 weeks. Knicks Sixers was close for me, and I ended up picking the wrong side of it, but I at least had a more strong feeling about Philly at the start of that particular series. This series, I don't feel good about either team given the injury to Maxi Kleber, but we're going to get into it. The Thunder won the season series 3-1. The data is almost useless. Everyone was out the last game. The Mavs blowout was right after the Gafford-Washington trade, and Gafford and Washington both came off the bench. Kind of a weird game. The Thunder were on 3 straight full days off beforehand, and they just came out flat and got rolled from the opening tip. Really energetic Mavs effort in that game. Luka was out for one of the other Mavs losses. Kyrie was out for one of the other Mavs losses. The one game all the stars played, the Mavs dominated, but like I said, it was kind of a weird game from the start. The metrics, the Mavs 113.5 offensive rating in this matchup. The Thunder 119.7. The Mavs barely won the rebounding battle. They grabbed 50.4% of available rebounds, so they didn't do as much damage to Oklahoma City as some other teams have done. The Thunder won points off of turnovers, 23.4 to 17.8 per game. The Thunder won second chance points, 18.3 to 13.3. By the way, these are actually per 100 possessions, not per game. Mavs won fast break points, 18.8 to 12.5, and Mavs won points in the paint, 46.3 to 45.3. Vegas agrees that this is more or less a coin flip series. The Thunder are currently favored at minus 115, according to DraftKings, but both teams have negative odds. If you want to bet the Mavs to win the series, you're getting it at minus 105, which is not a whole lot better. So more or less a coin flip series in Vegas as well. Let's start with the Mavs on offense. So it's going to be interesting because I think when the Mavs are on offense, it's going to be pretty straightforward matchups for Oklahoma City. When Oklahoma City is on offense, I think Dallas is going to be doing all sorts of different stuff to hang with some of the matchup issues that Oklahoma City can cause. So let's start Mavs on offense. Really straightforward matchups for them. It's going to be Lu Dort on Luka Doncic. Very a kind of a different type of defender than some of the guys he was going against in the last round. Like Russ and Terrence Mann are kind of like low center of gravity athletic guards, but Lu Dort is literally built like a linebacker. And so he's going to be able to kind of handle some of the bully ball stuff that Luka does a little better. But to be clear, in the regular season, Luka lit him up. 34 points per game, 56% from the field, 43% from three. 27 assists in the 2 games that he played. The game that I talked about, the blowout game, he was cooking Lu Dort early. He ducked under a pick early, which you shouldn't do with Luka. Luka hit a pull-up 3. He hit him with a pump fake, and Dort damn near ran into the scorer's table as Luka hit a 3 over the top of him. It was just a complete cook job. It was not pretty, but I do think Lu's capable of doing a much better job. His back pressure was kind of weak in that game. And like I said, he left his feet on pump fakes too much, but he does have the physical traits to beat Luka to spots and to hold up under his bully ball. I do think that he'll do a better job. I expect Luka to do a lot of work early in possessions to get him off of him as much as possible. And then I also think Lu Dort's going to bring a lot of full court ball pressure to try to tire him out. Again, the last time Luka lost a playoff series against Golden State in 2022, that was kind of the way that Golden State attacked him, was just to pick him up full court, try to tire him out, stay home off the ball, make him into a scorer, right? Jalen Williams on Kyrie. Kyrie also torched him. 31 points per game, 62% from the field, 43% from three. Main thing that stood out to me on tape is he's just a little too quick for Jalen. Jalen's a really good athlete, but Kyrie is a small guard with a ton of first step quickness. So for Jalen, it's mostly going to be about sticking to the game plan. What I mean by that is like a lot of it's going to be more about back pressure, doing the best you can to contest shots, more stuff within the team concept defensively. Because I think Oklahoma City is going to have to throw some extra bodies in that direction from time to time. Chet's going to guard whoever the center is, whether it's Daniel Gafford or Derek Lively. The Mavs ran a lot of pick and pop with Maxi Kleber in the regular season. When I talk about Maxi Kleber being out of this series, I'm primarily going to be focusing on Dallas on the defensive end of the floor because that's where I think his greatest value is. But it's also a loss on the offensive end because Gafford and Lively are not pick and pop players, and they ran a lot of pick and pop with Kleber against the Thunder during the regular season. Chet had some mixed results in drop coverage against Dallas. We'll show you some examples on the film when we get there. But similar to Dort, I think Chet's capable of doing a better job than he did during the regular season. I think we'll see Shai guard Derek Jones Jr., and I think we'll see Josh Giddey guard PJ Washington. And for both of them, same sort of thing. A lot of low man possessions where their guy's going to be in the corner spotting up, and they're going to need to help on pick and roll, help in defensive rebounding situations, help on drive. So it's going to be a lot of like help and rebound responsibilities from those two guys. They'll primarily run deep drop. They did some trapping with Chet, but they'll primarily run deep drop. They're going to when the Mavs try to attack Josh Giddey in particular, I think they'll do a lot of hedging and recovering. They did that in the regular season just to prevent Giddey from getting into any unfavorable matchups. Keys for both teams. For Dallas, get favorable matchups for Luka early in possessions with more guard-to-guard screens, and then also pushing in transition to get cross matches. One of the things that they had a lot of success with on tape was stack pick and roll. So they'd have Luka as the main ball handler. They'd have Gafford or Lively come up and set the screen. And then as Luka comes downhill, they'd have Kyrie underneath the basket, back screen Chet, and then pop out to the three-point line. They were spamming that in the I want to say it was in the third quarter of one of the games that I was watching. I've watched a bunch of film on this matchup today because I had such a poor feel for who I felt comfortable with in this series. I watched more film on this one than I did any of the other series I've watched this year, or that I previewed in this playoff run. And but there was a game, I want to say it was the one the Mavericks won big, and they really leaned into stack pick and roll in like an early third quarter run where they kind of started to pull away. And actually, I think it was like mid-third quarter. Not that it matters. Anyway, they spammed it a bunch of times in a row, and they got a bunch of buckets out of it from a bunch of different reads. And so I think they'll run that quite a bit. On Oklahoma City side, pressure Luka full court with Dort to eat into the shot clock, wear Luka out. Less time to run action that way, too. Again, like the Mavs, when you can kind of get them deep in the clock to where some of their lesser offensive players are trying to make plays with like 4 or 5 seconds on the shot clock, that's where you can play them into their worst tendencies. And then again, I think it's going to take a team defensive effort with Kyrie because, Jalen Williams in particular, like it just a little upright for Kyrie, but we'll see. He might hold up better in the postseason with more physicality and more intensity. Also, don't be surprised if we see a lot of Cason Wallace to try to deal with the Kyrie problem. And then again, cleaning up the defensive glass. That's going to be a big one just in general. Dallas was really, I know they didn't do a ton of damage to Oklahoma City in the regular season on the offensive glass. They did a ton of damage to the Clippers, though, in the first round on the offensive glass. So that's going to be a big one for Oklahoma City. Moving to Oklahoma City on offense, as I said, I think we're going to see a lot more variety in the defensive looks that we see from Dallas. I think they'll probably start game one with Kyrie on Shai. As crazy as that sounds. Derek Jones Jr. on Jalen. Luka on Lou Dort, and then PJ Washington on Josh Giddey, and then Daniel Gafford on Chet. I think that's how they'll start, but we very well might see Kyrie shift onto Josh Giddey and move PJ Washington onto one of their main two shot creators. I think that'll be a more of like a primary look we'll see throughout the series is Derek Jones on Shai, PJ Washington on Jalen, and then Kyrie to Josh Giddey. But Kyrie's been defending really well. And I wouldn't be surprised if in their team film sessions and stuff and in their prep, I wouldn't be surprised if Kyrie's speaking up to Jason Kidd and saying, I want to guard one of those guys, and we'll see if he ends up doing so. Again, one of the things that's going to be interesting is the Derek Jones, PJ Washington, Shai, Jalen kind of dynamic. I think you can go both ways. There's going to be, I think they're going to start Derek Jones on Shai because Derek Jones has been taking the higher leverage point of attack assignments for the most part here down the tail end of the season. But there's a case to be made that PJ Washington is actually a better matchup for Shai. Shai's not as athletic downhill. Shai gets a ton of drives to the basket, but it's more hesitation and it's a lot of shiftiness. Jalen's like a real downhill threat. And so part of me wonders if Derek Jones Jr. actually matches up better with Jalen Williams in terms of his ability to beat him to spots. Whereas Shai, when he's doing the herky-jerky, shifty kind of thing, and when he tries to get into your body and use that off arm to kind of get separation to take those short step backs, I wonder if PJ Washington can absorb that contact better and has better length to get contests. So I bet you they kind of tweak that around back and forth a little bit. And again, what you do is early in the series, you kind of let both guys have opportunities on both guys. And then you make a read on tape, like which guy's doing a better job making which guy feel uncomfortable. The Chet problem. So Chet's only 3 for 9 on pick and pop threes so far in this postseason. So I expect him to start with Gafford, Lively on Chet and just run drop. And then if Chet catches on the 3-point line, they'll have Gafford or Lively just close out as best as they can. But there will almost certainly be at least one game in the series, if not a few, where Chet's hitting. And it could just be like Miles Turner against the Bucks, where maybe he's just hitting the entire series. And if that happens, that's where the Maxi Kleber loss is huge, because he's the kind of versatile defender that can make that job a lot more achievable. So imagine you have Derek Jones Jr. on and PJ Washington on Jalen Williams and Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. If you're matched up on those two guys, if you have Kleber on Chet, then you can just switch everything. Any Jalen Chet ball screen, just switch. You trust Kleber to do a decent job on Jalen, right? If it's a Shai Chet ball screen, you just switch. You trust Kleber to do a good job on Shai, right? And then on the flip side of that, you don't think Chet's going to bully PJ Washington or Derek Jones Jr., right? So like that's an easy fix if Kleber's available. But without Kleber, I think we'll see Dallas try two different things. First, I think they might just try putting the center on Josh Giddey. This is a look they went with during the regular season that I'll show you guys when we get to the tape. But you just take Derek Lively or Josh Giddey, Gafford, and whichever one's on the floor, and Giddey will just be sitting in the corner, and you just have them sit in the paint and help. Then you move PJ Washington to Chet Holmgren. That's when you put Kyrie Irving on Shai, and then you basically switch any Chet ball screen with PJ, and that will at least allow you to prevent Chet from breaking open on those pick and pops. Now, one of the things you have to be prepared for there, and I'll show you guys this on tape as well, Oklahoma City has seen this coverage before. Teams have been putting their center on Giddey often throughout the regular season. And so one of the things you'll see is they'll just bring up Giddey into the ball screen instead of running it with Chet. In that case, you live with the results just running deep drop. Giddey is not a good movement shooter, so he's not going to slip out of that ball screen quickly and knock down shots. You just run your deep drop coverage. You chase with Kyrie over the top on Shai, and you funnel into to Gafford. And if Giddey catches on the perimeter, you just close out, right? But that is what Oklahoma City will do sometimes to counter putting the center on Giddey. They'll just start setting ball screens with Giddey. The second thing that I think we'll see them do is just go super small. And just go, this is not ideal. The ideal small ball group for Dallas would be Kleber and PJ Washington together with Derek Jones and Kyrie and Luka. And hopefully the news with Kleber's shoulder is that he's able to come back in 3 weeks. And if Dallas can somehow win the series, then he returns halfway through the conference finals, right? That's what you're crossing your fingers for. But in the short term, you got to have some sort of small ball look. I think you go with PJ Washington at center. And then what you do is you bring in either Dante Exum or Josh Green. Those are two of your stockier guards that can guard up a little bit. And then you run those two guys with Kyrie, Luka, and Derek Jones. And then from there, you put PJ on Chet, you put Derek Jones on Shai or Jalen, and then you put the other Dante Exum or Josh Green on the other one of those guys, do more switching like I talked about. That I think is another look that we'll see. I think you can get away with going super small against Oklahoma City in a way that you can't with some other teams around the league, just because Oklahoma City is pretty small. But definitely the Kleba loss is going to be big, but I think those are a couple looks that Dallas can go with to deal with the Chet problem if he gets going in pick and pop. Predictions. Again, I view this series as more or less of a coin flip. If Maxi Kleber was healthy, I'd give Dallas a clear edge. They wouldn't be a massive favorite, but I'd pick Dallas and feel more comfortable with it. But without him, I think it's a really tough series to call either way. And I think the Vegas odds are a clear sign of that as well. Both teams have negative odds. So if you bet $100, you're winning less than 100 on either team if you bet them to win the series. So I'm going to pick Dallas still for 3 reasons. One, I've been really impressed with Dallas's overall physicality on the front line so far in this postseason. Now, obviously, Kleba being out affects that, but they were the 3rd best offensive rebounding team in the first round. They grabbed 32% of their own misses. And as we know, that's a huge weakness for Oklahoma City. I think they were 28th in defensive rebounding in the regular season. 2, I think Luka is a better player than Shai. He's bigger, he's stronger, and he has substantially more playoff experience. And then 3, I'm a big believer in Jalen Williams' long-term potential. I've said this before. I think he has the potential to be better than Shai. But I think Kyrie is a little bit more prepared for this type of series in terms of experience. And so those 3 things kind of give me a tiny bit of an edge. Honestly, that gap almost gets closed for me because I think Oklahoma City does have more offensive skill down the roster after their stars. And Oklahoma City has an incredible home court advantage, and they're going to get 4 home games in this series. So it's still razor thin for me. I'm going to pick Dallas in 6, but I don't feel good about it. The NBA playoffs are heating up, and so is the action at DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NBA. With same-game parlays, live betting, odds boosts, and so much more, don't miss out as the NBA postseason winds down. So, lots of great odds for the second round. If you still think the Nuggets are going to come back and beat the Timberwolves, you can get them right now at plus 105. Thunder Mavs starts here shortly. And if you like the Mavs to win that series, you can get them at minus 105. And if you're new to DraftKings, you got to check this out. New customers bet $5 to get 150 in bonus bets instantly. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now and use code HOOPS. That's HOOPS. That's code HOOPS for new customers to get 150 in bonus bets when you bet just $5. Only on DraftKings. The crown is yours. So this first clip is just an example of Derrick Jones Jr. guarding Shai, so you guys can get a feel for what it looks like. It happens in a switch on a screen here. And I think we'll see some Josh Green on Shai too. We're going to see a lot more Josh Green and Dante Exum in all likelihood in this series by virtue of Kleba being out, just because those are kind of big, strong, athletic guards. Alrighty, so you can see Derrick Jones does a good job sliding his feet, but he can leave his feet, and Shai gets him off the ground here and draws a foul. But again, I think we're going to see a lot of that matchup in this series. This was early. These are a couple examples of early in the game when Lou Dort was really struggling with Luka. This one's going to start with Lou Dort ducking under a pick, which gives separation for Luka to get comfortable. So it goes under the screen, so when Luka pulls back, he feels more comfortable rising into that shot. Here's the one where Luka gets him off his feet with a pump fake. So over here, the kind of a janky ass move, but it worked. Here's an example of putting matchups in place so that you can switch the Chet ball screen. So again, notice Gafford's our center, and he ends up switching down off to Giddey here in a second. But notice they have here at the start of the possession, they put Derrick Jones Jr. on Chet. Now, I don't think they'll put Derrick Jones on Chet, but in this case, they're viewing Aaron Wiggins as a guy that they can help off of in their primary looks when they have all their starters out there. Gafford will be on Giddey instead. But just imagine this as kind of like a variation of that type of look where you have your center on someone that you're not as concerned about as a shooter. In all likelihood, will be Giddey again when you get into their core 5 group. But then you just put a wing on Chet, and then when the ball screen gets set, you just switch it, right? And so that's something I think they'll do. And then Josh Giddey's going to have to hit shots over the course of the series. This is a counter that I expect that we know Oklahoma City will use when teams put. This is the more traditional look I was asking about. So now Giddey is on. Gafford is on Giddey. So now notice Oklahoma City is just literally going to set a ball screen with with Giddey. And Shai is actually able to turn, that's snaking the pick and roll. I was talking about this the other day. So snaking the pick and roll is when a big steps out in a drop and you actually split the gap between the screener and the screen defender back in the opposite direction. But again, that's what they're going to do. They're just, if you put your center on Giddey, they're just going to put Giddey in the ball screen. Here's another example of Gafford on Giddey. So again, Shai's got Josh Green here, and he ISOs him. And watch, again, Giddey's over here in the corner. Gafford's just sitting in the lane, and he's able to get up and block Shai because of the fact that he's just not really concerned about Giddey on the weak side as a shooter. Giddey's shooting is going to be a huge part of this series. But again, I do think Giddey's got the potential to get hot and make these shots. I mean, I've told you guys this story before, but in our points league, we do a player points league every year at the Volume, and I picked Josh Giddey. One, because I had a good feeling that Oklahoma City would win the first round, so I get multiple rounds out of him and a good chance for a third round. But also because Giddey's just kind of like the beneficiary of a lot of these coverages. And I think he had a 20-point game in the first round, if I remember correctly. Alrighty. Here's another example of Giddey kind of being left open. So now they're doing the same thing with Kleber, right? So Derek Jones guarding Shai. Shai beats him off the dribble to the left. Kleber's just literally sitting in the paint, literally not even thinking about Giddey. And Giddey gets another wide open look at three, but he's gonna have to knock him down. Here's another example of using Josh Giddey as a screener. So again, Kleber's on the ball, but then again, Kleber just has the ability. They didn't switch that one, but Kleber would have the ability to switch that screen. One of the things I like about this, and this is something that I think that is advantageous in general with Giddey, he is at his best as a playmaker. So if you get him in these situations, this is a short roll. So because Kleber's so high, it's a short roll, meaning like Giddey's now behind the line, and now I've got a 4-on-3, right? I've got 4 Thunder players and 3 Mavs, and Giddey is able to work into the lane and generate this wide open look for Dort. But even think about this in the sense of a pick and pop. So let's say that Kleber runs more of a traditional high drop, and he kind of sits more in this area, or a deep drop, and he's further back here. And let's say that Giddey sets the screen and he pops to the 3-point line. I would just do the exact same thing. I would literally have Giddey pop, and then throw this kickback pass, and then just have Giddey drive, and basically treat that as the 4-on-3 and drive. And either one of these guys is going to step up, and you'll have a lob pass to Chet, or Luka will dive down to Chet. Derek Jones will step up, and you make this kick out pass to Dort. But essentially, using Giddey as a screener more than using him as a spot up guy, I think is a great way to weaponize his strengths rather than putting the focal point on his weaknesses. All right, last bit I want to look at here before we get out of here is Chet in drop coverage. I'm going to show you guys an example of him losing that battle and an example of him winning that battle. This, I believe, is the stack pick and roll. No, it's the next one. Okay, so as it's a double staggered look, right? And we have Chet in this deep drop. And this dynamic is the dynamic that Chet's going to find himself in a lot with Luka. When Luka gets Dort or Jalen in trail position, Gafford's going to be rolling, and it's going to be Chet having to kind of split the difference between these two. And in this particular play, you can see Luka does a really nice job baiting Chet in, making it look like a shot. Chet actually slaps the backboard up here, which leaves a clean, easy lob finish for Gafford. But one of the things that Chet has a unique ability to do, and we're going to look at this in this next possession, Chet is one of those rare athletes that can actually can kind of be in two places at once. So here we're going to get Luka coming off this ball screen on the right side of the floor. Chet's in a high drop, and he's baiting Luka into the pass, but he's close enough that he can take away the shot. He's making this look like it's open. But the whole time, Chet's thinking, as soon as he throws this, I'm turning and recovering. Watch this defensive play. Pass goes up, Chet turns, and literally just meets Gafford at the summit and blocks him. So, like, again, Chet has the capability. He's got a superpower, and he is capable of he has the capability to erase a lot of stuff in that ball screen coverage. And again, like, that's another part where Kleber being out is a loss. because he can be in two places in one, so in a no roller behind coverage, meaning guys dribbling at him and rolling at him. But if a guy's dribbling at him and the other guy's popping in the opposite direction, it's just a lot harder for him to close out there. So again, the Cleveland loss is going to be a big one for me. It's a big reason why I view this as a coin flip, but I am going to lean towards Dallas based on this experience of their stars. I do think Luka's a better player than Shai, and their physicality on the front line. All right, guys, that is all I have for this particular video. I will be back later today for a small series preview on Celtics Cavs. I will see you guys then.